podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
And there we are recording.
First proper one.
First proper podcast of the new era. Lovely.
Oh, we're the podcast.
Right, let's get started, huh?
Go for it.
And I need to make sure I don't fuck me intro up. I was just about to there, and Ellie started with the old one. Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this, the very first proper episode of How We're the Podcast from the team at Roker Report. It's Gav, and you join us in the aftermath of Sunderland's fantastic, or some of you might not think fantastic, 2-1 victory over Cardiff City at the Stadium of Light on Saturday afternoon. It was a win. That's the main thing. We got the 3 points. The performance, well, we'll talk about that now. But I know that a lot of people coming out of the ground didn't seem very happy. I was all right with it. But we're going to chat all about that and maybe get some questions in if people reply to us on Twitter quick enough, because we've kind of just thrown this together very quickly in the most unplanned of fashions, which is very typical of me. First up, joining me is Martin Wanless, all the way from Australia, and he's on his 10th coffee of the morning. Just explain to the listeners, Martin, what time you got up, what time it is now, the sacrifices you go to be.
Well, this is it, the trials and tribulations being a Sunderland fan that lives 16,000 kilometres away from the ground. There was 2 a.m. kickoff this morning, so I had about maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours sleep before that. Then the alarm goes off, get up, back to bed about 4:15. Obviously, it takes a bit of time to get back to sleep. You're either mulling things that went incorrectly over, or you're enjoying thinking about the things that went well. And then the alarm went off at 7 o'clock to get up so I could have some coffee to do this. So, 15 years, so I'm pretty accustomed to it.
It's a lot better when we win.
I tell you, I'm an absolute moody bastard on Sunday if we've got beat. I can cope with the tiredness come 1 or 2 o'clock this afternoon if we've won. But yeah, so thankfully we've won. Thankfully for everybody in the family today, we won.
Also joining me today is Neil Green. It's been a while since we've chatted, Neil, hasn't it? Hello, mate.
Yes, mate. Hello, mate. You all right?
Yeah. Were you there today?
I was, mate. Yeah, I've just made kick-off, which was a good job because I would have missed the first goal if I was 90 seconds late. So, yeah.
The will have actually been people still standing having a pint miss the goal.
Indeed.
That makes me feel a little bit better, actually, because I've missed some important goals over the years.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll never live down missing Defoe's volley. That was me having a piss. I went for a piss before half-time. Defoe's volley against Newcastle, very famously missed that one, and I'll literally never let them. Everyone tells it was the best goal ever, and I've only got video evidence to prove
it. Was. I was there.
All right, go rub it in. But yeah, so you just made kick-off. How come?
I just made it, yeah. I don't know. I was just having a pint in town and just set off too late. But I mean, my queue to get in my turnstile is always short, but the queues around the ground were huge. So
it's getting mad at the minute, innit? I don't know what that is. Like, I mean, maybe everyone just had the same idea as me today, like turn up really late after being in the pub. But I don't know, it's been like the last 3 or 4 home games. There's just queues everywhere.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So yes, we won, which is the main thing. I think that's the most important thing, lads, isn't it? Is that we won. I mean, before we get into the performance, 3 points on the board. Unfortunately, Burnley and Sheffield United didn't slip up, but we keep pace. I think we've pretty much accepted now that playoffs are probably our destiny. I think the main thing is that we go into the playoffs with a bit of momentum. The only way you build momentum is by winning games, right, Martin? That's it, isn't it? So we won the game, 3 points on the board. We got there by hook or by crook. And we didn't play Cardiff off the pitch, but I didn't expect to. They're struggling. They're a struggling team that were going to turn up and try and win the game, or at least try and get something from the game. And for the most part, I thought we were all right. I think if anybody's feeling a bit deflated about the way we played, I don't know. I was pretty happy with it.
Oh, look, I think you and Chris were talking about this the other day as well, and I actually thought it was a similar performance to what we've turned in for a lot of home games so far this year. And it's one of those that could have gone either way. You look at that chance that Cardiff had when it was 1-1 that Patterson pushed onto the post. you're talking about millimeters there, and it's a completely different game, isn't it? But I thought we did well. I thought we started strongly. Obviously, we got the early goal, which helps. But it would just be nice to get a second or third. I was making some notes in preparation for this as we. So I do preparation.
No, not me.
But I made a note after 20 minutes or so. Like, if we keep playing like this could be 4 or 5, because I thought we looked really strong, but we just couldn't get that second goal. But look, I think we saw it out. Got the 3 points, great 3 points, and it moves us to just 1 point of our total of points when we finish in the playoffs under Mowbray. So with 10 games left, we're only 1 point off that total that got us to the playoffs a couple of seasons ago. So I think if you're looking for overall progress in the big picture, that's it right there on that level of the game yesterday or today for you. The different time zones. Yeah, great 3 points.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Martin there. I think the main thing, Neil, as I keep saying, we won, but at the same time, right? I mean, there were opportunities there where it could have went either way. That felt like a big moment, that Patterson save. We'll come on to he's obviously he's part in their goal, right? But I mean, at 1-1, that was a big save. That was a massive save, and it could have been very, very different. But also, we had chances too. And it felt worse at the time, but I've seen it back. The Mayenda one where he kind of goes round the goalkeeper and the ball goes wide, and he just can't quite get round it and hits the side.
Could have gone down there.
Was that one? Yeah. But I mean, generally though, performance was fine, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah. I think we're officially in kind of results are more important than performance kind of season at the end of the season, if you know what I mean. It was a 6 out of 10. Someone else said on the chat earlier, it's kind of
that was me. You just stole that.
Yeah. So it was kind of what I'd say standard victory. I've heard for a long time now, and I've got a few away games that we really need to kind of put teams away, 5 and 6 and so on. And I just don't think we at that level of kind of team at the moment, and the dynamics of the team means that we will generally eke out results as opposed to kind of blow teams away. We've done it once or twice this season, but I think it's an unfair expectation to kind of, especially when teams are fighting against relegation and so on, to kind of just blow teams away. I don't think that's kind of where we are as a team or squad at the moment. So, in very few teams, our squads are, to be honest. So, yeah, I was generally happy with the performance. It wasn't the best performance, but we did what was needed, really.
The way we started the game was really impressive, though, Martin. I think I think that's been one. If I was going to be really critical, and I think I might have pointed this out in the past, but I think that's the one big thing I've been asking for is just start like a house on fire, put them under pressure. That first goal came just from us pressing them. I mean, we had 2 or 3 opportunities. Just bear in mind, we scored in 100 seconds or whatever it was. Yeah, it was second minute or whatever it was. But we'd actually pressed them into danger 2 or 3 times before we even got the goal. And that's exactly how Sunderland fans want to see the team start. I do think, though, Mayenda's got a lot to do with that. I think he showed this earlier in the season that when we play against a team who are a little bit frightened to have the ball at the back, Mayenda in particular, when he leads that press, he frightens the shite out of them. And that's exactly what happened to get that first goal. That for me, that's how I want to see it, especially at home. You want the crowd on your side. That's the way you want to start a game. And we enacted, we'll come on to the second goal, but I think generally when we had to be clinical, we enacted our game plan perfectly. Like that was the plan. Start really quickly, get at Cardiff, make them sort of think, what's going on here? And see what happens. And obviously the goal came as a result of that.
Do you reckon we've done that in a few home games? I think even against Hull, we started pretty well and had a good 10 minutes and we just didn't get the goal. And I think we've started home games on the front foot more often than not. It's really interesting what you say about Mayenda, though, because his presence there, that's the first time he's played up front by himself at home since early in the season, I think, isn't it? Because he started
possibly,
off
yeah.
up there, but I don't think Isadore's missed any games out with injury, if any. But Mayenda's natural game is that press, and we've spoken about that press that was there at the start of the season that maybe hasn't been there in the middle part of the season, and perhaps it's just Mayenda. Maybe he's much more willing to press and run and close people down than Isidore sort of naturally does. But I think he's done really well, and he's improved so much as a player. Like his touch, I thought he led the line brilliantly against Cardiff. I thought he held the ball up well. He was physical. He was a bit of a nuisance, and his pace is lightning, isn't it? And just stretches. In the second half, there was a few occasions where we broke, and his pace was the reason that we were able to break, because he was just so fast. And you think how him and Isidore could complement. It's really difficult to play two, I think, with two strikers in the Championship. But if there was a way of actually getting them on the field together, and I know we've spoken about it's good to have an option in reserve and all that sort of stuff, but if we could get those two on the field at the same time more often, you kind of think they could do some damage together, because they've got really good sort of complementary skill sets that could cause a heap of trouble.
Yeah, and Roberts, I think, who set the goal up. It was a shame, obviously, he went off injured, Neil, but that's what we want to see more of from Pat Roberts, isn't it? Incisive passing, finding the strikers in dangerous positions. But Mayenda makes the goal. I mean, you look at the way he just sort of shimmies and shifts the ball to his left foot. I mean, the keeper's just left stranded. He's just staring at it, watching it go into the bottom corner. He's nothing he can do about it. I think Martin's right. I think Mayenda's improved so much. I mean, I can hardly believe that's the kid who couldn't get a game for Hibs last season. Hibs fans must be watching on thinking, how the hell did we mess that up? Because Eliezer Mayenda, for me, and I've watched a lot of Championship football this season, but I think bar a handful of strikers at this level, I think he's right up there with some of the best in the Championship. And we've only really got a small sample size because he's not started a lot of games. But I just think, when you look how much he's improved, his all-round skill set, for a lad who was, what's he, 5'9", 5'10", he's not the biggest, but he carries himself like a big footballer. He's bullish, he's strong, he gets into defenders. And as Martin said, I mean, his pace is ridiculous. Like, how many times, even towards the end of the game, was he just knocking it behind a defender because he knew he was going to get there before them? I think he's a really special talent.
Yeah, and I think at this point you've got to commend the coaching as well, because I think last season I've got a good mate who's a Hibs fan, and even when he did play, he didn't really see much kind of in us. He understood why he wasn't playing, and I think he's come back this season, and it's hard to forget that he's 19 years old as well. He's not kind of a seasoned pro, but his touch, his kind of strength, I think the big plus he's got on Wilson is that he can, with his back to goal, he can hold defenders off. Whereas I think Wilson generally spends a lot of time on the floor in those situations. Whereas today, Mayenda really showed that's a big strength of his game. And what that does for the team is take the pressure off the back four, because he's actually holding the ball up. He's bringing midfielders into play, and essentially he's giving everyone a breather. But his goal was just kind of, as the young would say, it was just ice cold, like the way that first touch and the way he shimmied and just placed it in the bottom. And I was down Stoke when he missed that header from like 5 yards out. Literally came off the corner of his head. And today was just the complete opposite in terms of how much composure he showed. It was just never in doubt. It was like say 90 seconds into the game.
I think it's interesting, isn't it? Like we've talked about Isidore not getting into the games as much recently, certainly home games. And you're right, Neil, Isidore plays on the shoulder. If he's not going down, he'll play on the shoulder and try to get past the last defender. He doesn't play with his back to goal as much. And, it's quite amazing, really, if you think that if you'd said 2 or 3 weeks ago, we'd be having a serious conversation about whether Isidore or Mayenda should start up front. You'd go like something's gone completely mental somewhere, because Isidore was in such good form. And yes, he wasn't getting the game as much, but he was scoring goals. And for Mayenda to come in and produce the performances he has against Sheffield Wednesday and against Cardiff, and add so much to the team, to what we're actually trying to do, the team looks better with him in, because he plays with his back to goal and he links up play, and he can then go off because he's so quick. And you kind of wonder where Wilson's going to come in, because I think LeBris has said in his press conference and after the game against Cardiff, like, he's not going to drop Mayenda, essentially, reading in between the lines, because he's scoring goals, and it's really hard or difficult to drop a striker who's scoring goals. So you go, well, where's Wilson going to come back in? Because he's got to come back in somewhere at some point. But Mayenda's making it's such a good claim for that starting jersey.
Do you not think as well when Isidore came on? I don't know. It might just be my viewing of the game, but do you not think when Isidore came on, he was a lot more involved than he normally is in terms of just linking up the play and getting on the ball. I've never seen him spread. He'd done it 2 or 3 times where he played a lovely pass to spread the play, and I was just thinking when I was watching it, like I don't think I've ever seen him do that. It might just be that little bit of pressure that's pushing him and making him do those. Is he watching Mayenda in training every day and saying, what's he doing? What I'm not doing? And are those things I could be doing in my game? I mean, it's only a good thing. If you've got 2 really strong players in one position competing for a start, I mean, the only people who can benefit from that are the players, but the team as well.
But I think that's maybe a sort of a result of the 2 of them playing on the same pitch at the same time, whereas one of them can drop off. And, we brought Wilson in, and all the reports were that he was a left winger, really, wasn't he? He was somebody who played off the striker and played deep. And we haven't actually seen that build-up play and link-up play as much from him because he's always been the last man up front. So, maybe that's just something he's got in his locker that we haven't actually got him into the positions on the field too often to see. But in the second half when he came on, it was a couple of great balls he spread out to Mundle and Watson. That they were able to get on and really sort of shift the play. And I think that's potentially one thing I would be critical of us in the past couple of months, that we haven't switched the players often. Because when Lefay's been playing on the left, he's come back and come infield, and we haven't actually had that option to go over. And I thought we did that pretty well. I thought we struggled to do with the Chef Wed too much, but I thought we did it well yesterday. Quite
like that you were using your hands to demonstrate what you meant there. The listeners will not be able to see that, but we definitely got to see it. Otherwise than that, the way we started the game, I think we were strong for. I think it was it after the game Mepham was talking, wasn't he? He was saying for the first 20 minutes or so that's probably as well as we've played at home in a long time. But after that point, it just kind of felt like we dropped off again. I don't know what that was, whether that was just because Cardiff naturally were trying to get back into the game or whether it was a tactical thing because we'd started so quickly we had to drop off a little bit and breathe and maybe try not to exert ourselves too much. But it definitely affected us. I don't know if anybody else agrees with us, but I don't know. We did drop off. There were moments where we were good, like we got down the left-hand side a few times with Mundle. Mundle had a couple of shots. But generally, I just felt like we didn't really capitalise, Neil, on that start we had.
Yeah, I guess the turning point was Roberts going off injured. I think before that, for all the pressure that we hadn't necessarily forced the keeper into any saves as such. And Mundle looked a lot better than what he has done in the first couple of games. It's obviously he's one of them who comes back and probably needs 4 or 5 games to get kind of back up to full speed. But obviously the goal came from Roberts, the pressure first, and then from Roberts' side. And it is when he went off, then it kind of maybe stagnated us that we only had that one outlet going down the left hand side with Mundle. And
was that the right sub? Do you think? By the way, Rig coming on for Roberts.
I know it's a kind of bone of contention. I think we won the game, so it doesn't matter. I think maybe a more kind of attacking sub would have been to bring Wilson on and have Wilson on a wing. But at the same time, I understand why Rig comes on. He's the lad who's kind of dropped out of the team recently, so I'm guessing he's the first one to come on. I thought he did okay. I thought Rig was a little bit better than what he's shown in recent starts and so on. But it's certainly up for debate in terms of whether there could have been a more attacking player came on. I think at that point we had Mundle and Mayenda on the pitch who were out and out attackers against kind of fourth bottom. So I think there's maybe an argument that yes, it was maybe a bit kind of pragmatic as a substitution, but we won the game. So I think there's other talking points I would suggest.
Yeah. I thought Rig did okay, to be honest. Go on, Martin.
I reckon on that, I thought it was a really telling sub, and I thought it was really telling in terms of how Lebris sees Roberts' role, and he obviously sees Roberts' role as a playmaker as opposed to an attacker. Because Rig, if you look at Rig as a player, he's the closest player to Patrick Roberts really in that sort of role. Left-footed, same sort of size. He can link up play. He can move. He's quick he'll play his quick passes and moves quickly. And like for like, he's pretty similar. I think it just showed really what Lebris sees and values in Roberts, which is stuff that we've talked about, right? I've defended Roberts quite a lot this season because I can see a lot of value in what he brings in that link-up bit, that phase before we actually go and attack. But I think the first 20 minutes, I thought two of our best players were Mundle and Brown. I thought Brown was really, really good in just like knitting things together and pushing the team forward. And after 20 minutes, Roberts goes down. Cardiff come and get a bit of a talking to. They stopped playing goal kicks out from the back. Every goal kick after that, I think, pretty much went long, or a lot of them did, because they stopped playing that shot because they were getting done by the press. And it just changed the dynamic of the game. And I think they resolved to be a little bit more solid and not to try to play out.
Yeah, well, they had a big centre forward, didn't they? I actually thought he looked like a bit of a handful. I think if they'd got the ball wide more and played it into him, I think he would have caused us problems, because there was a couple of times where it felt like 09 was having to really exert himself just to win headers and tackles, which, to be honest, he plays like that. I think that's kind of his style, isn't it, as a defender, 09. But, I found like when that lad got in behind, they looked really threatening. And I think it was Colwell as well who was playing on the wing.
He's good in mind.
Yeah, good player, but big lad, isn't he, for a wide player. But yeah, I just think generally we did step off a little bit. Nearly probably right. I actually forgot about the fact that Roberts had gone off, but yeah, Roberts going, and hopefully he's okay. I mean, the manager wasn't really being drawn on that, was he? So that doesn't fill me with confidence, because normally if it's not a bad injury, he will say, "Oh, we're expecting him to be okay for next week or whatever." But he was kind of just not really being drawn on giving any opinion, which makes me think they think it's bad enough that it's got to be looked at again in the morning, kind of thing. So hopefully it's not too bad. I wouldn't expect to see him on Tuesday night, but yeah, I think as the half wore on, yeah, we dropped off a little bit, but I didn't see the Cardiff goal coming. I mean, yeah, we weren't playing fantastic at the time, but it just felt like it came out of nowt, really. And again, it's Patterson who's under a bit of pressure. I mean, I've watched it back 4 or 5 times to try and get my head around what actually happens, and I still don't know, because we're claiming for a foul. I mean, the whole team is claiming for a foul on Patterson, but to me, there's no foul there. Like, he's come herring out, he's missed it again. The lad's knocked it across, and to be honest, even though Patterson is largely at fault because he's left his goal open, I still think Mepham could probably do better. He's standing on the line and kind of just watches the ball go in past him. But it's all a bit of a mess, and I just think, yet again, Neil, we're looking at poor Pato in goal, who's this must be the third goal in the last few weeks where you can probably say he should be doing better.
Yeah, it's a funny one with Patterson. I really like him as a keeper. If you think of kind of where he ranks in Championship keepers, I think he's in kind of the top 5. You've got the likes of Cooper, Trafford, the lad at Stoke,
Johansson,
one or two others maybe. And I think you've got to be careful what you wish for in the Championship when it comes to keepers. We had some pretty rank keepers when we first came out of the Premier League and into League One, and then Patterson came and almost kind of saved the day, I guess. So I guess we've got to kind of remember what a Championship keeper looks like. And I'll get into the criticism in it. But yeah, and we also need to remember that he's kind of, I think he's played something like 160 games or something now at his age, and he still is young. He is still young for a keeper. That said, I think for me, what I'd be critical of, and I spoke to a couple of mates who were relatively good keepers back in the day, had a fairly high standard, not a professional standard, but kind of, and they consider one of his key strengths is his kind of demeanour. He's very chilled, he's very relaxed. I guess the opposite of this would be Pickford, who's almost erratic, almost kind of like childlike when he's on the pitch, and he's been criticised for that as well. Whereas Patterson's the complete opposite. He's kind of very chilled, very calm, and I can imagine that kind of does a defence well in terms of trusting them. I think the criticism is maybe from the outside looking in is that he's almost too laid back and too chill. And sometimes I kind of watch him for like like on corners and so on, and I never see him kind of talk. I never see him berate his defence. So if someone does something wrong, he's not really a big talker and so on. So I don't know, his body language a kind of something you can critique or kind of say that's a big weakness. But what I think it does lead to is kind of maybe a lack of communication, a lack of command in his box. And I think from the goals that we've seen that maybe could be kind of apportioned to him as kind of faults is maybe just a lack of communication and a lack of command within his box. Whereas other keepers would kind of, the Roberts one, for example, last home game, someone would have wiped him out and just took the ball with him kind of thing. So, but again, it's this kind of, do you want a nice, calm keeper who keeps everyone else calm? Or is he just too calm, too reserved at the moment? And I guess the final point I would make is that I think he's been targeted now, that he's made a high profile mistake or two. And I think opposition bosses and kind of particularly on set pieces, they're making sure that he's tested early on. And at the moment, he's failing one or two of those tests, I guess. And it wasn't a free kick today. It was just two players going for the ball. Keepers are generally well protected. And if it was a foul, it was a foul there. And I think they asked the referee, but it was a very kind of calm kind of request from the referee. I think everyone knew the same.
Yeah, Martin, what about you? What did you think of the goal and the way it kind of transpired?
I just thought that was a keeper who was not confident in what he's doing, desperate to sort of show that he is confident. Because when he actually started coming out for it, I was thinking brilliant. That's what we want to actually see. That's what you haven't done in the last few games. And then it was a complete mess, really, wasn't it? So it's, I think it's a lack of confidence. I think that lack of confidence that Patterson has in himself with balls coming in is, knocking across to the other defenders. And Neil's right. Like he's going to be, and this is the thing, right? He's going to be targeted even more so over the next few games. And, we might get away with it like we did against Cardiff. And ultimately it doesn't matter about that one because we won the game. Get the playoffs, and it's potentially a whole different ball game, isn't it? And I think, what do you do? Like, do you bring more in for a few games? Because like he's an able deputy, isn't he? But he's not a first choice material for a full season. I wouldn't necessarily want to be going into the playoffs with him in goal, with more in goal. But do you give Patterson a couple of games out? Do you stick with him? Because, it's, what was it, 3 games, 4 games you could probably criticise him for? It's really the last 4 games, isn't it? You could look at them and say you probably could have done better with the goals that were conceded.
It's a tough one, I think, because if he was going to drop him, he would have done it by now.
I don't think he would. I don't think he would.
No, what I mean by that is, you look at the mistake when it went through his hands. It was at Hull. Was it Hull at home?
It was the Hull one on the near post,
Yeah, when it went straight through his hands off Roberts' head.
Yeah.
That to me was when I would be looking at it. And bear in mind, that was just off the back of conceding against Leeds where he just jumped past the ball far too early. That was probably the moment to go, how I paddle out the team. Maybe even just for 1 game, 2 games, drop them out, see what happens. But I don't think it's their style to do that. I mean, if you look, as a wider topic, if you look at the treatment of Dan Neil, of Job, of Rigg in particular, when they've had sticky patches of form, and that's all Patterson's going through. If he was an outfield player, he wouldn't be making mistakes which are costing us goals and costing us points ultimately. He's a goalkeeper, so there's more of a focus on that because, he's the last line of defence. If he makes a mistake, that's it. But with Neil and Bellingham and Rigg at the minute even, they're playing them through these spells. I think they must have some sort of belief around the way they develop a player in that, if they're playing poorly, the worst thing you can do from a psychological point of view and from a point of view of trying to develop this player into being something bigger than he currently is to go, you're coming out, you're not right for this situation. They kind of think, we just plow on from here. We believe in you. We do. I think that must be the way they look at it. Because and to be honest, I think certainly my thought process would be a lot different if we had someone sat on the bench who I think, like you've just said, could be the goalkeeper in a playoff campaign.
Yeah.
I don't mind Simon Moore. I think he's done nothing wrong when he's played, but he wasn't signed to play for Sunderland regularly. He was signed to be there as backup, to push Patterson to be an experienced voice around the changing ground, which he is. And he's obviously, he keeps himself right. And I'm sure if Patterson got injured, Moore would come in and do absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But I just think that there is a sort of a wider view taken on development and things like that. And ultimately to them, that's the most important thing, is developing players.
No, there is. Like we've spoken about it a lot, haven't we? I think obviously with goalkeepers, the mistakes that they make are more game changing, aren't they? But on the flip side, you've got that save in the second half, which if that had gone in, nobody would look at Patterson for conceding that. So
I think he redeemed himself, didn't he?
Well, he did, and it evened itself up, didn't it? So you kind of go, well, let's take the rough with the smooth, because that's where his strength is, that shot stopping. I think he's probably one of the best in the Championship for that bit of goalkeeping. And to me, that aspect of coming out and claiming crosses and commanding your box is something you can work on. That natural instinct to save, it's harder to work on. So he's got an awful lot of attributes, and as Neil says, he's a bloody experienced goalkeeper for a lad who's so young in goalkeeping terms, certainly. So, I would be surprised if we took him out of the team, but he's got to start showing a bit more command in his box, because you don't want another 5 or 6 games to go by, and then we're 3 or 4 games off the playoffs, and he's done the same thing another 4 or 5 times, because that's going to weigh on his mind and the defence's mind. Yeah.
We started the second half slowly, I think. I think it was, we came out and we just didn't look anywhere near the team that started the first half. And for once, and this is something which people have criticised the manager for, he recognised that early enough. I think it was only 10 minutes and he made changes, and there were positive attacking changes. I think Mayenda had given away, like, between the second half starting and him coming off, he made 3 or 4 stupid tackles where he just flew into people, gave away free kicks. I think the last thing he did was get booked, and then he was brought off the pitch. And Dennis Serkin came on, and actually I was really impressed with Dennis Serkin. I thought he had a good second half. I know that again, this is them managing them. I don't think it's anything to do with form or anything like that. I just think if you think of when Eliezer was fit, they were being rotated regularly because Serkin's still nursing that problem with his wrist, which he's still wearing a cast on it. That's going to be a problem till the end of the season, till he can get seen to properly. And it was a moment for us to take a breath and make some changes, and Mayenda came in and did absolutely fine at Hillsborough. But I thought he had a decent first half, all right. Came out second half, was all over the place. So Serkin coming on for him was absolutely fine. And Alan Brown was sacrificed to bring on Wilson Isidore, which I understood because we had to try and win the game. But actually, Alan Brown, I think, did very well. I thought he had a good first half. I don't know about you, Neil, but I thought he, considering we're still kind of waiting to see what Alan Brown can do in a Sunderland shirt, I thought he did okay.
Yeah, I think maybe a bit context there. Preston at home on Tuesday, so I think you'll want him kind of fit and firing for that. And he's been out for a long time. He played a little bit longer down Sheffield, but yeah, again, he's another one who's going to take 4 or 5 games to get up to speed. But I think his press at the day was really good. He certainly, how many games has he played at this level? He was at Preston for 10 years, pretty much always in their team. So I think he's just been a bit unlucky with that injury. He was fairly not injured before he joined us, and the curse has hit him.
Well, isn't it?
Yeah. So yes, but at the same time, it was understandable. It was kind of to get a bit more pace into the game. It was obviously a game that the manager thought we need to win, and it was quite nice to see those kind of. I think that's the earliest kind of tactical changes he's made, to be honest. And I think Serkin's another example. You mentioned before about playing these players through kind of rough patches. I think that's the best way to go with young players, because they'll go fairly insular if they all of a sudden they bombed out of the team, and for months and months and months, they need that kind of arm around the shoulder to say, yeah, this is fine, this happens in football, and you'll play your way through it. And I don't think Serkin's been as bad as kind of what I've heard people, certainly around me where I sit. He's not been that kind of flying fullback that we had last season, where he was creating and scoring goals. He got a couple of goals down West Brom and things like that. It was that season before last season, but yeah, he's shown kind of improvement. But with that wrist injury, I can understand why he may be a bit kind of concerned about that as well.
I think with Sirkin, it's because he had such a good start to the season as well. His levels have dropped a little bit, but he's still performing as a good championship fullback. But in that first 3 months of the season, I thought he was absolutely superb. It was Coventry, wasn't he? He scored that superb goal at home, and then it was only shortly after that he got injured, and that was kind of him out for a little bit. And he hasn't recovered his form since he's come back into the team, but I think it's partly because he set such high standards for himself early on.
Yeah.
I think it's also the way that we play now is slightly different. And again, shall we say that the older folks around me hate this kind of going inside. So when a fullback gets the ball, it goes back to the centre half. Sometimes it goes back to the keeper, and then we start again. Before, I think our fullbacks were a bit more progressive, where they were looking for that forward pass all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas I think our fullbacks naturally now are looking to kind of rotate play around the centre circle to try and shift teams out of position, particularly the lesser teams, shall we call them. So he's not that kind of bobbing fullback that perhaps he was in the last season or two under Mowbray, for example. He's that kind of possession-based fullback who's defending first and foremost, and then trying to keep the ball and getting the ball forward as well.
Yeah, we then got a kind of an insight into the psyche of a manager who's severely under pressure at the bottom of the table, because we made attacking changes early in the game, and I wouldn't say we dominated the play necessarily, but we were the better team from that point. And Cardiff's response to that was to bring on a defender and try and go 5 at the back. And for me, although we'll get into the goal in a minute, although we didn't score from open play, I just think they invited us onto them. Like if that had been the other way around, we would have been foaming with Sunderland going down to basically try and win a point or snatch something. I heard their manager after the game talking about it, and he actually said, because we brought another striker on, they thought they had to bring a defender on, and I was just thinking that's just so negative. I mean, you look at the way you look at Hull the other week, who were in a similar position to Cardiff down there, fighting to try and steal. Hull came. And yeah, they put men behind the ball, but they did it with purpose. And I just felt like Cardiff weren't built that way. They basically kind of accepted, right, we're not going to win this game. We're going to try and sit in, and if we can sneak something on the counter-attack, great. And yeah, I think ultimately that's what changed it. I mean, Callum Robinson came off, who is probably their best player. And certainly from an attacking perspective anyways, he's a pretty seasoned pro at this level forward who scored plenty of goals. They bring on a defender. We then bring out Mundell, who had a decent enough game. I thought first half he had their fullback on toast. Second half he did slow down, but he's been out a long time. And on came Tommy Watson, and that must be, daunting for any team. And that's something we've really missed, is that ability to just bring on wingers. I think this is something that Regis Labrie said after the game when he was talking about just the opportunity to bring on Watson and bring out Mundell and just, switch things around from an attacking perspective. We haven't had that for months. So that was fantastic. And, from that point, again, I think we carried on. We got a free kick around the box, had a couple of opportunities in the build up to that goal where I was a bit frustrated. There was one where Joe broke away, had options left and right, and rather than pass it, he decided to keep carrying it, and he won us a free kick on the edge of the box, which I think Mundell hit into the wall. But it was just getting a little bit frustrating for us, and that's normally about the time of the game where I'm sat there and I'm going, are we going to get anything out of this? Are we going to win or not? It kind of felt like it was one of them days where we might not get the win, but I think when you look at the goal, it was an absolutely brilliant bit of play. Like, obviously worked on it. Isidore was already on his bike. Hume plays him in, slots him in down the side, easy pass across the box, and then standing there waiting to tap it in is Welshman Chris Mepham, who scores his first goal in the Sunderland shirt. And I think that now means that pretty much every player who's played regularly for us outfield this season has scored a goal. I think Mepham was the only one who hadn't managed to notch, and that's a great moment for him. He mentioned in his interview after the game that his family were in the stands watching. His mum and dad had came to the game, so it was just a great time for him. I don't know who his allegiance is to in Wales, but he certainly celebrated like a Swansea fan. But yeah, I mean, a decent bit of play, right, Neil? It was something that we've not seen a great deal of. I think earlier in the season we had certainly better opportunities coming from our set pieces, but we've not been so great in that regard. But yeah, fantastic bit of play, great goal.
Yeah, I think I mentioned before about kind of how we kind of try and play, and I think it's maybe a little bit predictable sometimes. So that we haven't got kind of a plan B, and that was a prime example of doing something a little bit outside the box, something off the training ground, and it worked to perfection, really. I noticed in his celebration, he'd obviously had a bit chew with one of their defenders. I think it was NG actually. And he was on.
There's no surprise by that. He's a proper worky ticket.
Yeah, as he scored, he was on the way over, and the referee kind of stopped him. So there was obviously something said. It was funny. It was that bit where there was a free kick, and it went out for a corner, and the referee decided to give them a drop ball. I still don't know what was going on.
Yeah, what was that about? Martin, you obviously watched the stream of that. What happened?
I think he spotted something, some foul in the box before the ball went out of play. There was some tussle between Mepham and one of their defenders. But that was, remember the referee who used to have the hairband in the in League One?
It's Darren England.
Darren Bond. So that was him. So he was without his hairband. Yes, he's retired his hairband, which I think is probably a wise choice. But he's still prone to make a puzzling decision as he proved there. But yeah, it was an odd one because we should have had a corner.
Yeah, but like I say, decent goal from Sunderland, which ultimately won us the game, and we saw it out. We I don't think we really looked under any great threat after that point. Cardiff, you can see why they're struggling. To be honest, they've got a big lad up front. I think I can't remember his name, so I'm not going to even try and remember it. I'm just buying time here while I press through Google. Salech, there we go. I think he's done quite well since he came in January, and you could see when they got the ball up to him, you could see like there's something there. But as I mentioned before, they just didn't have the sort of the pace down the sides to really hurt us. And I think it was a pretty routine win in the end. I mean, you said it at the very top, Neil. It was a proper 6 out of 10 performance. Like, yeah, there were elements of it that I was disappointed with. There's bits I wish we'd done better. I think we could have turned the screw earlier in the game a little bit more. Maybe got another goal early on just to really kill it early in the game and then see what could have went on from there. But generally, I think that's just how we play. And you can go right through the team, really. I don't think anybody had a particularly bad game. Even Patterson for making that mistake, he did make up for it with that save. Hjelde had a decent first half, wasn't really on the pitch long enough in the second half, but didn't have a great second half while he was on the pitch. But then you go right through the rest of the team. I think Trey Hume, we haven't barely mentioned him, but I thought he was brilliant.
Yeah, an excellent game.
Yeah, and the man of the moment was Eliezer Mayenda, wasn't it? Who, again, just keeps on going. I think when you're looking at the end of the game, and I mentioned this earlier, but when right at the death, we're trying to either kill the game off or get in the corner, and I don't think that's in Mayenda's makeup. He likes to try and get another goal, doesn't he? How often does he get that opportunity to run in the corner? Just goes, nah, I think we need to crack on and try and get another goal here. But he, just like late in games when everyone's knackered, he's surely knackered. He's ran his arse off the full match. He's knocking it in behind, trying to get round defenders, trying to turn them, trying to make them pay for being tired, kind of thing. And I think he's a shining example to anybody who's waiting for a chance to get into this team, because he's been very, very patient. And I think there are legitimate reasons why you wouldn't play them together when you're missing so many attacking players. But we've got them back now, and he's been really patient. He's been given a chance. He's took it. And it's, as you mentioned before, Martin, we're now having this conversation about who starts up front. Like, that's exactly what you want from a player, isn't it? It's, for me, that is why we go out there, we scour the market for these young players who've got they tick so many boxes when it comes to ability and potential and things like that. But you also have to have the application. And in a week where we've seen a young player leave the club and not under particularly great terms by the looks of it, in Jewison Bennett, the opposite end of the scale, you've got Eliezer Mayenda. Similarly, Bennett didn't have a great loan away last year, but he's grafted his arse off. And look at that. He's in the team. He's scoring goals. He could spearhead our promotion to the Premier League if he keeps up going. So, happy days, right? I mean, Eliezer Mayenda once again gets my man of the match. I don't know about you, but it's a toss-up between him and Hume, probably.
No, it's great. I think one of the only players who wasn't quite on form was Dan Neil. I thought he gave the ball away, got caught in possession loads. And there was times where over the past few weeks, I think he's been absolutely superb, and we've actually like played. He's been anchoring everything. He's been such an influential part of the game. I thought there was 5 or 6 occasions against Cardiff where he took a touch and somebody nipped in and got the ball off him. He's just slightly off the pace. But I think Mayenda, for his goal and how he held the ball, as I said earlier, how he held the ball up and just linked up play, stretched the game, and obviously got his goal. Could have had another 1 or 2 quite easily, I think, couldn't he? I thought Mundell first half was brilliant. I thought he really showed what we've been missing in that like far more attacking left wing role, because we just haven't had that just raw pace drive at teams. And he even showed he can go outside and get a shot in with his left foot. There was one in the first half that he did that, and the keeper saved pretty well at the near post. And he can go either way, and he's a constant goal threat. So hopefully he's coming back into fitness and form at the right time. As Neil says, he looks like one of those who will need 4 or 5 games to really hit his straps. But if we can get him and Watson relatively fit for that run-in, that adds such a different element to the team that we haven't had for the past couple of months. So I thought Mundell did well first half, obviously tired second half. But yeah, I wouldn't argue with Mayenda and Hume being 2 of the prime contenders for the man of the match.
Anyone add to that, Neil?
No, I'd agree with that. I think maybe a slightly different point is that I think we will see a kind of rotation of the team once the kind of playoffs are fairly secured. I know they are fairly secured, but you never say never with Sunderland. But I think it is maybe an element of tiredness. I know we've got an international break coming up as well, so I think the kind of the 6 out of 10 individual performances are just down to the schedule, and really, and kind of it's pretty full on. It's pretty. I don't think they get many days off. So I think we may just kind of see a relaxation of the typical squad and all towards kind of April, May, really. I don't think we should be resting players before the playoffs, but I think there's an opportunity, Serkin coming out as an example, to kind of really try and rotate. I know it's not typical of the manager, but yeah, I think we may see some of that coming up in the coming weeks.
It's interesting that, though, isn't it? Because you look at the bench that we had yesterday, and like Joe Anderson was on the bench, and he's been around the club for a long enough time for them to realistically think he's probably not going to be a
genuinely
first
forgot
team
he
regular.
Existed, by the way, didn't even know he was on the bench.
And like Harrison Jones was on the bench, and realistically, he's not going to be a regular first team player this season. Salas wasn't around, was he? Pavard has obviously dropped off the face of the earth again, and we've got Watson there, who I think in midweek Labris said he wasn't ready to play more than 20 minutes. So you get players coming back, but then you've got players dropping out as well, and we can never seem to get to that point where we've got. I think it was maybe a couple of matches ago where there was some quite fierce competition for the bench, but after that we've kind of gone through this rotation again where injuries have picked up and fitness is still required. So the point being, really, I'm not sure how much rotation we can actually do. I think Brown coming back in enables Rigg to drop out for a couple of games. Rigg will come back in because he'll probably start on Tuesday. Looking at how Labris sets things up. But yeah, there's actually not, apart from 2 or 3 players, there's actually not that much potential to rest. I think Bellingham could probably do with a rest the same as Rigg has, because he's on 9 yellow cards, isn't he? So you want to kind of protect that a little bit so he doesn't get a suspension.
Shit, I forgot about that. When that runs out, is it Millwall?
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah, 30. Yeah. 36.
Have we got Millwall coming up? I feel like I've already checked this out. Millwall,
Coventry, and then Millwall to an after, I think. Yeah.
So basically, he's got to get to Millwall without getting booked, which I think tough, innit?
It'll be tough.
Yeah. But yeah, good win. 3 points is all that matters ultimately. And yeah, we move on to the next one on Tuesday night. And before we move on to some questions, we will do some 3-word reviews very quickly from the Roper Report Twitter followers. Thank you very much if you took part. I'm not going to read them all out because there's tons. John Wilson.
Followers, if people want to follow How We're the Podcast, we haven't got a Twitter feed for How We're the Podcast, have we?
Nah, that's for down the line, that man, Martin. We'll start off with our very own John Wilson. John says, "Winning is all." Tim, John K's Tractor. I love that handle every time I see it. John K's Tractor. Foul on Pato. Owen Sarah says, prolific Chris Mepham. Dale Robson says, so quiet. Twang Mackham says, you beautiful bastards. Indeed. NC Bulldog says, 3 fucking points. Stephen Bulch says, seen it coming. Ooh, he had a fiver on at 12-1. Anytime goal scorer, Chris Mepham. And he sent us a screenshot of that. Very nice. How many times has he put that on this season?
Well, that's what I was going to say. I wonder if he's up on that.
Is it a case of like, it's got to happen at some point? So let's just keep putting it on.
We always used to put a quid on John Kay to score the first goal of 50-1. He was always 50-1. We used to put a quid on most weeks and he never, ever, ever scored.
Concussion_pro says, onwards and upwards. Ian Chester says, such hard work. Adam says, the Mayenda show. Ray Lewis says, performance was poor. So Ray would probably not agree with what we've had to say today, particularly. Donald and Charlie says, playing below ability. Dan Crosswell says, hard graft rewarded. Joe Lewin says, Hielda no more. That could be a complainer song. Michael Dunn says, not our Michael Dunn, but a different one, says, Eli Mayenda 800k. I suppose that's 3 words. William Horrigan says, hero Chris Mepham. Christine Smith says, kill them off. Who was she talking about there? Kill who? Presumably means Cardiff. And maybe us. Yeah, you never know. First episode, you might be sick of us. And the Skinster will end off. And this one says, rest Patterson now. So there we have it. I did actually get through them all there, despite saying I wouldn't. Okay, questions from the Twitter followers too. We're going to try and add these in at the end of every show. Why not? We'll start off again with John Wilson, who says, why can't we stay on the front foot after scoring first? I feel like we've sort of touched on this one, Martin, but why do you think that is?
But I think it's the same as when we go away from home, right? So when we go away this season, pretty much every game, it's always been a case of whether the first 10, 15 minutes and you work yourself into the game. And I think that's the vast majority of games. I think it's incredibly hard to keep up that momentum and pace for more than sort of 15, 20 minutes. And I think if you get a couple of goals in that period of time, then it changes the dynamic of the game completely because the other team has to come out and then it leaves more space. So you're not actually keeping that momentum up, but the game changes completely. I think if you keep it down to 0-0 or 1-0, then the opposition still has time to work into the game. The game becomes more settled. So I actually think when you watch pretty much any game, the home team tends to start off or try to start off relatively strongly and the opposition kind of react to it. So actually, I don't think it's a fault in how we play necessarily, but it's more a consequence of not getting that second goal.
Yeah, and to be honest, like I said before, I watch a lot of Championship football, and there's only really Leeds who are doing that from end to end in any game. I think pretty much everybody else is exactly the same as us. If even the decent teams who are doing quite well, I think you're right.
Leeds are on a different level. Like, I think exactly. we can't really compare ourselves to Leeds, even though we're in the same division and competing for the same thing. I just think they are, player for player, so far ahead of where we are. And, the fact that we're still up there competing with the three teams that came down, 3 teams with parachute payments, I think is such a bloody good accolade for the club. Look, it would be brilliant, wouldn't it, to just blow teams away? And, we've said it. It would be fantastic. And if we've got that second goal against Cardiff, then perhaps we do. But it's difficult.
Yeah. This one might be a quicker one to answer, Neil. Clay Sourdyke says, if Roberts is out on Tuesday, who do you put on the right?
It'll be Chris Frigg, regardless of what I think. I think we'll come in because actually it did not work when he came on today. We may be a bit lopsided offensively, but I think it'll be Rigg.
So Isidore stays on the bench then?
The good thing about Isidore today is that he came on against tired legs, and I think that's how we saw the difference in him. That's how he was more involved in the game. So against the Preston side, who were very organised, I remember I think there's 0-0 down there. It may be better just kind of waiting to bring Wilson on. So I think it'll be Rigg. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I think it'll be Rigg. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think that's what he'll probably do. Just how good is Mayenda? I think we've kind of touched on this, but for me, I put him right up there with any striker I've seen at this level, kind of outside of the bracket of, I think if you think Isidore is one of the best strikers in the Championship, then you've got to say Mayenda is too, right? Because they're very comparable in terms of their ability, and they're very different players, totally different types of striker. I mean, I back Isidore to score more goals over a season than I do Mayenda, but as a more all-round player, I think Mayenda's got a lot to his game. So, and he's only 19, and he's not played regular first-team football until now, and he's only really getting the odd start here and there. That's to me a great sign of where his ability could go to. But I think certainly if you rank him I look at the rest of the Championship, you look at the guy at Leeds, Perot, they paid 20-odd million for him, I think. He's the best goal scorer in the division. You've got Josh Sargent when he's fit at Norwich is one of the best. I don't rate particularly Burnley strikers. I think Zian Fleming's a number 10 playing as a number 9. Not really convinced by him. He's all right. I don't think he'll play in the Premier League. I don't think he's good enough to make that step up. So, other than that, who is there really? I know, Martin, I can see you staring at your screen, which means you're looking at the top scorers list. You're going to throw some names at us.
I was looking at Mayenda's goals and assists, because he's got 7 goals and 5 assists in 13 starts. Yeah, so in terms of actual output and productivity, he's right up there. I think with Mayenda, I think he's getting better every week. So I think the Mayenda that we've got now is different from the one that we had at the start of the season, and he's different from the one that was here a year ago. I think his ceiling is massive, and it's something that we've talked about quite a lot, isn't it, with young players coming through? And that's the exciting thing about watching a lot of this team, because we don't really know how high that ceiling is. We know that they've got a high ceiling, but we don't know how high that is. And I think Mayenda could be, he could be anything he wants, and he seems to have a fantastically good attitude, which is massive in that development. So the fact that he's come in for Isidore in the last couple of games and being able to play so well and stake his claim, I just think is superb. And he's he seems a popular lad in the team, a good person to have around the club, and he's a fantastically good player as well. So I think his potential is scary, because he's got pretty much everything in his locker. And it's Neil talked about the Stoke header earlier. That followed the Blackburn game where he was clean through in the last minute and didn't score. That could have wrecked a player's confidence, couldn't it? But for him to come back and put that to one side and come back into the form he's shown in the second half of the season, it's absolute testament to him and the coaching staff. And as I say, he could be anything he wants.
Yeah. Thanks to Colin Skinner, Jill Sarah, who else has asked this question? Joe Lewins. We've had a bunch of questions about Patterson. I think we've already spent a lot of time talking about Pato, so you kind of all know what we think about that. So we will round off with this one, which is quite funny to me, at least. Walex Walburn says, do you think Jayden Danns will have any impact at all when he's finally fit with how Isidore and Mayenda are performing? I think we... does he exist, Jayden Danns? I'm fairly certain we will never see him in a Sunderland shirt, and that will go down probably alongside Emmanuel Aboué as one of the most pointless signings Sunderland have ever made.
Tommy
Enough
Smith.
for the lads, well, yeah, he's up there, yeah, but Jayden Danns will probably never play for Sunderland. No. And
to counteract that, he might play for us next season. If it's a player, he's obviously a player that kind of, when he first signed, inverted commas, I watched a bit YouTube in the same way that I watched Joe Gelhard YouTube. So I understand youth team YouTube isn't the kind of the way you measure a player, but I think he's obviously outgrown kind of youth football, so he will go on loan somewhere. And if they see him as kind of a direct kind of backup to those two, then I can see him kind of coming to a similar club to Sunderland, whether it be in the Championship or kind of lower end of the Premier League. So never say never. It's a funny thing as well, because the match day squad, what are they, 19 players now? So 4 of those players just aren't going to be involved in the game unless your keeper's only going to come on if your keeper gets injured or whatever. Very rarely a centre half gets replaced and so on. So I think he would have been an option, but whether we see him, I'm not too sure this season. But maybe he's certainly one of the top. He's signing 2 new contracts with Liverpool in the last 12 months. So they obviously rate him very highly. So I would say never say never, I guess.
Yeah, it's a very common injury that he's got in young people. I think it's one that can go untraced. It has gone untraced. Like, didn't he play in the Champions League like the week before we signed him?
Yeah.
So, it's just a barrel full of shit luck, really. We've kind of just ended up in this crappy situation where we thought we'd got a really good player over the line, and right at the death, it turns out on his medical that he's got this stress fracture, which, to be honest, is nothing we can do about it. The advice is going to be he can't play. I know the club have been very coy with how much they mention this. I mean, I know Lebree was asked about it in his press conference last week, and he just kind of was like, yeah, no update. It was a bit like that. I think genuinely that they just aren't considering Jayden Danns. If he's somehow fit at the end of the season, then amazing, but I just can't see it. I think we might as well carry on and pretend he doesn't exist. And if he pops up around the playoff season, and that would be typical, wouldn't it? If he just for the playoff semis or whatever was available and played some part in getting us promoted, having not done anything at all up to that point, that would be mint. But yeah, unfortunately, Jayden Danns is not available, so can't see him having any impact at all, really. Well, it's been around about an hour, lads. I think we've gone on long enough. It's getting late. It's Saturday night. We need to get to bed, Neil, don't we? Not together. Not going to start any rumours.
A revelation to start the podcast off.
I'll get some clicks.
Wow,
Podcasters share a bed. But yeah, we will be back ahead of Preston with a preview. We've got George Hodgson from the Lancashire Post coming on to chat with us ahead of that game. So that should be on your feeds Monday, I think. So make sure you listen out for that. We've also got, after the Preston game, we should have Nick Barnes joining us as well. So we're going to have guests coming thick and fast. And Chris will be back for those two, in case you're wondering where Chris is, because we did introduce him at the start of this thing with the little intro pod we did, saying it was the 3 of us. And then Chris has went to Hull to see Book of Mormon, which we've been ditched for to Hull and back. Been ditched for a play, but he will be around for the next one, so you'll get to hear his lovely voice. Cheers, Neil. Thanks, mate. Been great.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Cheers, Martin. Thank you very much, buddy. And cheers to the listeners. We will catch you on the next one. See you later.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.